Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Vanguard Atomic, which is, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that logo there, but if you're not, this is an Ivan B design right here. This is a really cool card. Actually, the box it came in is really nice. I'm not normally super enthusiastic about the packaging, but I will point this out because it is nice. Sorry, we're bumping the camera there. You can tell I'm definitely a professional. But the card it came with and the box that it comes with is really nice, and it's worth pointing out. So, who is Vanguard? The gentleman who founded PMP is the person behind Vanguard Knives. And Vanguard Knives has some knives that are made in China, but they're also expanding to the USA, which I think is really, really cool. Obviously, those USA knives are going to cost a lot more money. Not to say that this is not an expensive knife, because it is. Yeah, this is just like it's like another project brand, I guess. And he's collaborating with different designers to bring some interesting stuff to the table. You can buy this knife. It's available at DLT Trading in a wide variety of configurations, so I will link it. You can get black, you can get purple. They've even got like white. There's a whole bunch of stuff, so I'll invite you guys to check that out if you want to. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this really good looking knife. Overall length of the Atomic. By the way, these are small batch production projects, right? So we're not looking at the same scale as, you know, I guess some of the Chinese OEMs that are pumping out like 1,000 or 5,000 of a knife. No, these are smaller batch, and usually with smaller batch, you get, you know, pricing that's a little higher than you might expect. Then again, this does have some really, really nice elements to it. So we'll talk more about price here in just a little bit. Overall length is coming in at 8 1/4. Blade length is coming in at 3.65. And your cutting edge is also a little over 3.5. Something that Ivan does really well with his designs is the blade to handle ratio is usually very even. And that creates for, I feel like, a good aesthetic, right? A pleasing aesthetic. Not everybody feels the same way, but that's how I think. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Trying to hold it together, guys. This is one of the 2 times a year where my allergies go absolutely nuts. So I'm trying really hard. Thank you for bearing with me. Super high quality knife review. Okay, so you can see here that this is a full-size knife, but not nearly as robust as something like the 8010. Definitely larger than the 20.5. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Very similar to the size of the PM2. Way more cutting edge, though. And then finally up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and the Hogue Deca. How's the action on this knife? Very high quality build. If you've ever experienced anything from PMP, then you'll know that they have their knives OEM'd by different people sometimes. But basically, if you're gonna pick something up and the gentleman, I'm sorry, from PMP, or it has anything to do with the gentleman who's behind PMP, then the build quality is always very, very good. Whether they go with, you know, Bastek or they go with Riot, right? Thinking back to like the Alpha Beast that was made, actually the second generation was made by Fox Knives in Italy, right? So they utilize a number of different OEMs. I don't know exactly who OEM'd this, but I can tell you it feels very similar to the premier Chinese OEMs that we are all extremely familiar with. So likely one of them, especially, you know, looking at the price tag, that's what, and feeling it and experiencing it, that's what I would guess. So it could be, you know, one of like 2 or 3 different ones, but it does feel extremely well made, very high quality, right? Exactly what you'd expect. I would like to see on the website, right? I don't think that they would hide it from me if I asked, but, you know, since we're in the middle of a review, you should put that on the website, along with your HRC range for M390. Also, you should put it on the card, right? I don't like to have to hunt for OEM information or HRC information. That's stuff that should just be readily available, right? These are expensive knives, and people paying for this stuff definitely want to know, right? We know it's made in China, so who's the OEM, right? I doubt that they're trying to hide that. I think it's just not there. HRC, I would venture to guess that, you know, especially considering the OEMs that they've worked with in the past, it's probably at least the industry standard 5961. Hopefully it's better, but either way, we want to know, right? So make that information readily available, so that everybody can just know it, right? Anyways, I can't remember where we were. Were we talking about, oh, we were going to talk about action. So access to the lock bar is pretty good. It's cut out a little bit on the front side to give you a little bit better access to that lock bar. The area where the flipper tab, which is very minimal, connects with your finger is just barely passing the detent ball, but it does clear it. The detent ball is up on the face of the blade. That means no double clutch, right? So it's nice. The pivot action is really, really nice. Definitely smooth, and it will only get better as time goes on. Your flipper tab is incredibly small and pokey. So the benefit to that, hardly anything there. Very low profile. The downside, shockingly, it's a lot more satisfying than I would have guessed. The sound it makes and the detail, like the release, really nice. A little bit painful. I'm gonna be completely honest. I haven't found a perfect way to engage with this. Light switching it, push buttoning it, it's not like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like, it's not that dramatic, but it's not comfortable. So, yeah, like, it's definitely satisfying to flip and makes a really loud, like, man, it's loud in like a good way. But any satisfaction that would be there, a lot of it is diminished by the fact that the flipper tab is just not pleasant to interact with. Also, this is just high enough that I can't get at this ledge to deploy it, right? The hole in the blade, can you use that to deploy it? Not really. I haven't figured out how. I can't get under there, right? The D10 is heavy enough that I'd really need to engage with it down here, or at least very low, but I can't because the frame is covering most of it. So that would have been nice as just like an optional deployment. Not necessarily that it has to be there. So yeah, it will deploy and you'll get used to it, but it's not the most comfortable flipper tab, right? I don't think that it's a deal breaker, but it's something you're going to notice, so I wanted to point it out. Carry profile thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's actually on the thinner side, maybe just a hair thinner than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This is not a difficult object to carry. It's got a longer closed profile than the Para 3, but not quite as tall this way. It's a little bit shorter, actually quite a bit shorter than the PM2 and nowhere near as tall. It is full titanium, but this just wasn't a difficult object to carry. It's a nice compact size, right? It's just an easy knife to carry. Weight, excuse me. Again, we are looking at M390, as it says on the card here. M390 and titanium. So we have titanium. We got a big old titanium backspacer, titanium pocket clip. No lefty mounting position. We'll talk more about that. And then we have not a super thick piece of M390 on the blade. The internals are milled for weight reduction. I'm going to guess this weighs a little over 4, maybe 4.5 ounces. Excuse me. A little over 4. 4.1 ounces, not bad at all, especially considering you're almost at 3.75 inches of blade. That does not surprise me at all. Very Ivan-like. Balance is right behind the pivot, right where you're going to put your index finger, so that's nice. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Pivot's going to be a T8, almost certainly. T8, lock bar insert screw, you shouldn't be taking that out. That's a T6, and I think all the body screws, unfortunately, are also T6 along with the pocket clip screw. There's only 2 on each side, so no big deal. Really should have found a way to include a mounting position for left-handed people, but that's not there. Bummer. So, as long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure the blade stock thickness, and then we'll get into the rest of the review here. Excuse me. Blade stock thickness is coming in at, was that 115 to 120? Yeah, 113 or so thousand, so definitely on the thinner side. All right, meat and potatoes time. It's a really good-looking knife. Not a completely and totally unique design, a lot of classic elements here, but it's got that Ivan personality, right? You've probably seen his work with various brands, and I like his logo, and I also like the way that the pivot is captive. That's cool. And then the titanium is lipped, right? So that it still has the chamfer line, but it comes up and like the edges of the pivot are chamfered. They have that little bevel right there, and it's just a really classy way to do the pivot. It looks really, really nice. I wish they had done the same thing or something similar with the hardware, but there's nothing wrong with the way they've done the hardware. As far as ergonomics go, it's pretty comfortable. I'm mashing into that pointy flipper tab a little bit, but not bad. It's not terrible, right? A little bit of a choke up spot right here. It's okay. One knuckle, I think you're safe. If you try to do this, you're really risking cutting your finger, right? A little bit of a sharpening choil there. The blade has a little bit, not really a harpoon notch. It has almost like a, I always refer to this as a sparrow grind because of the Hinderer sparrow from however long ago. I think through Monkey Edge, they had like a 3V production sparrow where the swedge sort of comes out here and then widens out, I guess, to sort of meet the flat of the blade. It just, I don't know how else to describe that, right? It's very similar to the way that Hinder did that sparrow grind. This area right here, which again is mostly just decorative, there's an opening hole and then it's just material that sort of tapers down. It looks nice. The blade looks really, really good. And honestly, fairly thin behind the edge, like versus your average pocket knife. I guess it's not going to be like an open L, but it's going to cut, it's going to slice. And like I said, I would venture to guess, just based on who PMP has worked with in the past, the HRC range is probably pretty good. But again, I'd like to know. The factory cutting edge is very, very even. Looks great on both sides. Nice tip. Actually a decent amount of material out here all the way out to the tip, considering that this is not an incredibly thick blade stock. That's nice. So you have a reasonably, I don't know. I don't want to say it's just like thicker at the tip than I would have guessed, right? If you were to give me the stats on paper. It's a nice looking blade and it's definitely going to be a functional blade, and you have a lot of cutting edge. It's also reasonably comfortable to hang on to. It's not hand melting, right? I think the edges could have been a little bit softer here, but there's nothing incredibly sharp, right? The pocket clip it's a little bit tall, right? There's nothing here that's like making me, oh my gosh, this is so uncomfortable, but it's also not like the best ergonomic experience ever. C+, B- if I had to give it a letter grade. But it definitely looks nice. I'm feeling like there should have been something else. I think some texturing, diagonal lines that kind of meet maybe at a peak here in the middle. I think that would have really helped accept that price tag, because that price tag is a little higher than I expected it to be. I know it's small batch, right? This is a premium production knife. Even though it's a Chinese knife, it is still using very premium materials. It's still very costly to create and then create enough room for them to make money on. But some texturing or something, some pattern, some milling pattern would have been really, really nice. The backspacer is interesting. It kind of comes up. It's got some little like bevels on the side there. Little designy elements, right? There's a little fuller right here. Kind of cool. It's for no other reason than just looking nice in an area that's otherwise either open or just a flush backspacer. Nice big lanyard hole. If you like lanyards, great. Pocket clip is a little designy as well. There's a little sort of area that is carved out through the middle of this. It's kind of one of those up and over pocket clips with a longer bill. So it's a little mashy, like pushing it into the pocket, especially if you have a thick pocket seam, but nothing like, you know, super fussy, right? In and out of the pocket is a pretty average experience, nothing crazy. Good retention, it's titanium, right? Nothing there really that I want to complain about. The other side of the knife has a little pivot collar, just a little blue pivot collar. It's random, but it's also not unwelcome. I think it looks pretty nice. There's not really a whole lot to say about it though. Little quad relief cut right here, kind of neat. We have a steel lock bar insert. I mean, there's just not a lot going on. It's all exactly what you'd expect here. I just feel like some milling, something to dress this up just a little bit would have helped me out personally, but not everybody. Some people really like the clean look, right? So it's really, that's pretty subjective. Smooth surface because there's no texturing. In and out of the pocket with a pocket clip that is a long bill and a little bit pinchy and kind of mashy with the up and over, right? Because it's not textured, it makes that part of the experience a little bit easier. You have a stop pin that's actually internal. It's attached to the blade, runs on channels carved out of either side on the titanium scales. You have no blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. Not quite double clutch. It's close, but not quite. So it's in the clear. No pivot lash whatsoever. Incredibly smooth and consistent here. A nice detent, nice clicky detent, and perfect centering. Base price on this knife is $290. And again, I think I could have, you know, it's small batch, and they do some really cool stuff. Like they've got like white. Oh, by the way, the black ones are not DLC. They're PVD. Still good, right? But it's not DLC. And then you have like purple and even like a white titanium. I'm going to guess that that's like something like Cerakote or something like that. But some of those are cool, right? I wanted it to have a little bit more on the machining side. $290, I'm not like super angry at, but I feel like this is more $250, $260, you know, something in there. But it is nice. I would really like to know exactly who the OEM is, and perhaps this information is known and is out there and I just didn't see it, right? But I tried to look on the website, the Vanguard Knives website. I also tried to look on the White Mountain Knives website. I didn't see anything there. So again, even if it is as simple as just reaching out to Vanguard, we shouldn't have to do that. It should just be on the website and it should be given to the retailers that sell this stuff, right? This is also on DLT Trading, which is where it'll be linked. Again, on DLT, it just says made in China. Want to know exactly who the OEM is. And if you're doing your own OEM work or whatever, like, I mean, that just needs to be there and able to be viewed by everybody. Same with the HRC range. It is 2024, moving into 2025. This should be like on every single listing of every single knife everywhere. We need to know what the steel is and what the HRC range is. We should not have to dig for it. So not angry at the $290 price. It just feels a little bit high. The flipper tab is too pointy and too small for me. And I really wish that I could get at this fuller and you know, the hole there, which I initially thought you could use for deployment, but not really. Right? It's a good looking knife, just a little bit quirky, but decent overall. I think people who pick this up, if the stuff that I'm pointing out, if you think that wouldn't bother me, I just want to know if it's made really well. Yeah, it's made super well, right? So for you, spend that money, you're probably going to be happy with it. But if any of the stuff that I pointed out bothers you, then maybe not. Anyways, that's going to be it. Thank you so much to Vanguard Knives for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.